Good morning, guys. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Liverpool FC Journal. I'm Aaron James. This is your live Liverpool podcast this morning. Obviously, it is Wednesday. We are one day away from taking on Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. We'll talk a little bit about that in this podcast. We'll also talk about some of the other bits and pieces from Arne Slot's press conference today. Guys, welcome to the channel. If you've just found the Liverpool FC Journal, we are an independent fan channel. We're not beholden to anybody. We don't sort of brown nose the club, or we don't we're not beholden to any radio networks or podcast channels. We bring you sort of the honest opinions of fans. And one of the things I do differently as a podder is, I think I'm quite similar to Craig in a way, in the fact that I will always include fan opinion. You know, when you make a comment, when you say things, it is more of a conversation. It's not just me talking about the club or we talk about games or whatever for an hour, 45, 50 minutes, half an hour, whatever. It's also you getting involved. Now, the channel has done reasonably well over the last few days, weeks. We're up to 96 subscribers now. We'd love to hit 100 as soon as is possible. Want to get to 1,000. Once we hit 1,000, once we hit monetization, which obviously is the aim of every YouTuber, is then to build the channel up big style and to really push the channel forward. And I think one of the things that independent channels do that some of these bigger channels don't do is we value what you do. And we don't have paywalls, we don't have pay tiers, we don't have LFC Journal Plus or this tier or the captain tier or a legends tier or anything like that. We're not going to charge you, we're not going to hide your content from you and say you've got to give me £3 a month or £5 a month or $2.99 a month or else you can't watch it. I started podcasting with in America, doing American stuff, doing NFL, NHL stuff. And one of the big things over there is you don't hide stuff from the fans. You don't make them pay for it. So that's what we do here at the Liverpool FC Journal. So if you want that free daily content, please obviously smash that sub, ring that notification bell, then you won't miss out. We have got a poll running in the live chat this morning, or this afternoon, depends on when you pick up the video, of course. Should Arne Slot go if Liverpool lose to Arsenal? At the moment, we've got 100% saying yes to that one. A few comments in as well. From some of our subscribers. We've got Olivia says, hello and how are you? I'm good, Olivia, how are you? She says, I'm so worried about Thursday night. If they play as well as they can, we're going to lose huge. I think in reference to Arsenal playing well rather than Liverpool playing well. I suppose that has to be the worry, is that Arsenal are top of the league. They are 14 points clear of Liverpool. They are a very good side, as I mentioned on the video, which I've just kind of released not so long back. They're a good side. They've got some good players and their squad depth is insane. So, yeah, they are a good team. Certainly a good team. A very, very good side. So it is a worry for me. Sam Webby says, I've yet to find one person who is slot in who can give me a real reason why he should stay, other than who else is available, which is not a reason to keep him. His football is so dull. Yeah, I've got to say, a lot of the slot inners, their argument solely is based on who else is available. Now, as I said on a previous video, when I was questioned about this, Sam, I said, basically, I don't know who's available. You don't know who's available. No one knows who's available. And why don't we know? Because you know what? We don't have the ability to talk to other clubs. As fans, as fan channels, as fan media, we don't have that ability to kind of say, yeah, I know that Luis Enrique is available. I know that Julian Nagelsmann's available after the World Cup. I know that Andoni Iraola's available. I don't know who's available. You don't know who's available. Etc, etc. So yeah, I get it, mate, where you're coming from on that one. It's not an argument at all, because at the end of the day, it could be that Liverpool could approach Luis Enrique at the end of the season and he could say, yeah, I want to come to Liverpool, I want to be a Liverpool manager. We don't know that. None of us know that. It's unlikely, but it could happen. He's also, Slot won't win fuck all this season. He won last season thanks to Jurgen's legacy. Look, I think it's a difficult argument that gets trotted out quite a lot, doesn't it? That he won because of Jurgen's team, Jurgen's tactics. I think that Slot benefited certainly from, number one, the squad that Jurgen had built. That squad that he inherited was Jurgen's squad. Yes, Liverpool added Mamouashvili, who then went on loan to Valencia, and Chiesa, who Slot hardly used. And he used Jurgen's players. They were players that Jurgen brought to the club, designed to play the way that Jurgen wanted them to play. So I think there was kind of a tendency that once he came in, he was going to stick largely to what we'd been doing previously. The high press, the gegenpress, the aggressive counter-attacking football. the aggressive football that Jurgen played. He did stick to that, and I think that's unarguable. He's changed that this season. He's ripped that up. He's sold a lot of the players that Jurgen brought in. Darwin and Luis Diaz. Obviously, we've had the tragic death of Diogo Jota. But look, I think for me, he did one thing I suppose that Jurgen didn't do, which was he kept the players fitter for longer. Which I think was the benefit and why we won the league. And people say, well, Jurgen didn't win the league. Yeah, but Jurgen didn't win the league because of all the injuries we had and the fact that players got burnt out slightly quicker under Jurgen than they are under Slot. Although we are seeing player injuries and player burnout under Slot now because of the fact that he's got this small squad that he talks about. And we'll talk a bit about that in the pod. Sam says, I'm a season ticket holder and the atmosphere in the ground is awful. Match-going fans have had enough of Arna's snore ball. And this we don't sack managers because we are Liverpool crap makes me sick. Yeah, I mean, look, for me, if someone's not doing their job, I don't care who you are or what your previous history says, you sack them. It's the way it is. Unfortunately, it is the way it is. And I'm not going to pretend that sacking Arne Slot doesn't worry me slightly. That we then bring in Steven Gerrard and we on an interim basis and we become Manchester United with Ollie's at the wheel, which looks like Ollie will be at the wheel again, which is hilarious. And we go down the Man United route, which does concern me slightly. Of course it does. But look, you don't keep someone in a job just because you have a history of not sacking managers. If someone is not doing their job, you get rid of them. That's unfortunately the way life works in the Premier League. And football is not the same football that it was 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Yes, the Liverpool team that came through under Paisley, under Shankly, under Fagan, and under, even to some extent under Dalglish and Roy Evans and Houllier, it's not the same Liverpool. It isn't, because the Premier League has changed. Football has changed. European football has changed. There's a higher pressure atmosphere now. There's a more demand on results because of the money's available. And if you lose out on Champions League football, it is critical for your club. And, I think Liverpool can't afford to lose out on Champions League football. For what it's worth, I think Liverpool will still get Champions League football next season because of the fact that everyone else is just so shit. Man United are shit, Chelsea are shit this season, both of whom have sacked their managers, which is weird. Maresca wins them the World Club Championship, wins them the Conference League, has them on the verge of the top four, and he gets the sack. I think the sacking was more to do with the fact that he'd fallen out with the Chelsea hierarchy, the same way that Amorim's sacking was more to do with the fact that he'd fallen out with the Manchester United hierarchy. And there's talk of that happening at Liverpool. Of course there is. But look, I don't know. It's a weird one. And like I said to you, I do think that Liverpool will get top four. Basically because all of the rest of the league is so bad. It is. It really is. It just is so poor this season. You've got Manchester City who are hit and miss. You've got Arsenal who are probably going to win the league by default in a way because because of the fact that everyone else is just so bad. I don't know, guys. It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a very, very tricky one. Really, really is a tricky one. Question there, Sam says, do you think Arne will be here next season? I don't think he will be here next season. And let me tell you why I don't think he'll be here. We are going to talk a bit about the presser today, and we're going to talk about some of the other bits and pieces. But as I've said, I like to respond to people and their questions and their comments. Why don't I think Arne will be here next season? I think the only way Arne Slot survives this season, Sam, is if Liverpool win the Champions League. I don't think, even if Liverpool finish fourth this season, and they finish the season without a trophy, that he will survive. And the reason I don't think he will survive is because of the fact that there is a growing sense of disquiet amongst the fans with his style of football, with the way he is playing. The football that we're seeing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, is boring. It's overplaying, it's overpassing, it's boring, it's turgid, it's ineffective. And you can talk about the 9-game unbeaten run all you want, but if we talk about those 9 games that we've won, we beat a poor West Ham. West Ham, everyone beats West Ham. They lost to Forest last night. West Ham are going to get relegated this season. That is a given. They're gone. So, beating West Ham is no great achievement. Even at their stadium, that hideous wreck of a stadium of theirs. So you can go back to that. A 1-1 draw with Sunderland again. A game we were lucky to get a point out of. Had Chiesa not busted his ass and got back and saved that, stopped that ball from going in, they probably win that 2-1, and then it's not an unbeaten in 9. The Leeds game, the 3-3, we go 2-0 up, throw it away to 2-2, then it's 3-2, and then again, up, no, throw it away again. The sense of belief, the sense of ability to see out a game, the sense of ability to finish teams off is just not there. I mean, are you telling me that if that was Klopp's Liverpool and we're 2-0 up, we go on to draw that 3-3? Or even if that's Klopp's Liverpool and it's 3-2, that we don't go on to win that 4-2, 5-2 or something like that? I think we do. The Inter game, yes, that's the one that does stand out. It was a good performance, don't get me wrong, and well done. The Brighton game, 2-0 at Anfield. Again, we go 2-0 up early on, but Brighton had their shooting boots on. That game could end 2-1, 2-2, it could end anything. Realistically, Brighton could have got a point out of that game. The Tottenham game, Tottenham are down to 9 men at the end, yet you look at the last 10, 15 minutes of that game, Liverpool are clinging on for dear life against a team with 9 men. Clinging on. And again, if that's Klopp's Liverpool, do you think we cling on? Or do you think we win that game 3-4-1 in the end? Wolves, one of the worst teams in Premier League history. We beat them 2-1, but again, we're clinging on. The Leeds game, boring. I mean, just diabolical football from Liverpool. And then the Fulham game, 2-2. Again, at no point, apart from perhaps 20 minutes, is anyone overly impressed with the performance there. So, look, for me, yes, the 9-game unbeaten run proves nothing. Yes, if we go to the Emirates and we beat Arsenal, then I think, that we've got to obviously then review that and think slightly differently about this unbeaten run. But that's the first thing. I think also within the hierarchy of the club, with Richard Hughes, with Michael Edwards, with John W. Henry, there is a disquiet because of the fact that they've spent nearly £500 million. And the whole talk at the start of the season was Liverpool are here to dominate. Liverpool are here to compete on all 4 fronts, to push on all 4 fronts. Now, Slot threw away the League Cup, and we're not going to go back over that. Realistically, yes, we're still in the Champions League, but realistically, we're not one of the favourites for that. And, you look at the Champions League as it stands, and I don't think, Liverpool, on present form, on the way that they're currently playing, win the Champions League. You look at the teams in the Champions League at the top. Arsenal probably got more chance. PSG probably got more chance. Inter probably got more chance. Real, or I'd rate them as all having better chances. Bayern than Liverpool of winning the Champions League this season. So I think on the whole, that's something they're not going to win. Now I think as well he will field a very weakened team against Barnsley, which probably hopefully will be enough to beat Barnsley, but I can see him throwing away the FA Cup using the argument of, well, we've got to concentrate on getting top 4, we've got to concentrate on the Champions League, we haven't got the depth of squad, which, yes, you can see. So I don't think we win the FA Cup. So I think we finish this season without a trophy, which I think, for the hierarchy, given the expenditure, given what they've spent this past summer, won't be acceptable. Now, Slot spoke today in a press conference about the fact that he is aligned with Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards and the owners and the ownership. He's going to say that. He's not going to come out in a press conference and say, I don't agree with what Richard Hughes has done with the squad. I don't agree with what Michael Edwards has done. I don't agree with John, because he's going to get himself sacked. That's what Amorim did. That's why Amorim got sacked. So, yes, we can use the whole squad depth argument. I think there is a lack of squad depth there. And whilst obviously Arne Slot is a big part of what is going wrong at this football club, he's not the only problem at this football club. There is a range of problems, I think. Squad depth is a big issue, and Richard Hughes, I think, needs part of the blame for that. So, I think, in terms of going back, sort of a long-winded way of answering your question, Sam, I don't think he'll be here next season. I think he will be here till the end of the season. I think even if Arsenal beat us 3-4-0 on Thursday, he will still be here for the next game and the next game after that. I don't see him being here next season though. I do think that Arne Slot will be sacked at the end of this season, or he will or the club will part company by mutual consent at the end of this season, and Liverpool will have a new manager in place for next season. Now, as to who that manager will be, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is, as I've said earlier, I don't have a multi-million pounds scouting network. I don't have a range of people out there who can go away and talk to managers for me and tell me who's available and who's not available. So, at the end of the day, that like you've said, that is a spurious argument as to why you wouldn't sack somebody. So, let's put that one to one side. But no, I just to go back what you said, I don't believe for a minute that he will be here next season. I think he'll be gone, and that's certainly what I've heard and what I'm hearing and what others have said. He will not be here next season, I don't believe. Guys, please get your votes in as well in the poll. Should Arne Slot be sacked should Arne Slot go if Liverpool lose to Arsenal on Thursday? Let me know in the comments what your views are on that. And if you're a Slot inner, tell me why, please. Like I said, I've yet to meet anyone who has told me an argument that Slot should stay beyond who else is there? That seems to be their only argument. Who else is there? Or the other argument is, we're Liverpool, we don't sack managers, which to me is not an argument. It's just a ridiculous. Like I've said at the start of the pod, there is a different world to football these days. Football is different. Football is vastly different to what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. The demands these days on football clubs and football managers is massive, given the sums of money available, especially in the Premier League. So, hey, let's just kind of get there with that one. Guys, just a reminder as well, please obviously smash a sub on the video. We're at 96 subscribers. We would love to get to 100 subscribers today, if possible, and definitely 100 before the Arsenal game tomorrow. So please obviously hit a sub up on my video for me. Thank you. A sub on the channel, please. That would be amazing. If you're watching as well, please let me know where you're watching from. It'd be great to hear from you. Right, look, one of the things that Arne Slot was asked about in his press conference this morning was about the fact that does he see Liverpool as dull? Does he see Liverpool as a dull team, which is sort of something that's been levelled at him? And, this is what Arne had to say on that one. He said, we should definitely be able to find that consistency and also play games that are more of a joy to watch against teams that have a different approach against us than Brighton and Villa have, which I think is getting at the fact that Brighton and Villa came and they played a game of football rather than these teams that come and they low block or mid block against us and then we struggle to break them down. Now, why we struggle to break them down is obvious, because we play too slow. We play football that is the build-up play is not good enough. The build-up play is way too slow. It is to beat a low block. You've got to pass fast, move the ball quickly, be aggressive, create overloads, and use width as well. They're the ways of beating a low block. Something we don't do. We pass the ball far too much at the back, which gives teams a chance to reset, and then it's harder to break down. And Slot can argue all he wants about that, but it's a fact. It's an absolute fact. I heard a stat the other day that per defensive action last season Liverpool averaged 8 passes per defensive action. This season we're averaging 11 passes per defensive action. Now I think a lot of it is down to the fact that Slot was concerned about how many goals we were conceding, how many, the fact we were easy to get at, we were easy to get to score past. He's wanted us to be more solid defensively. Fine, but the problem there is it's made us easy to play against. It's made us dull and boring. He said, therefore, we need as many players as possible as we can keep working hard to find openings and find the right ideas to hurt those teams as well. Against Fulham, I don't think many people thought it was a joy to watch. And I've said many times that I found our games against Paris Saint-Germain a joy to watch. So then compare maybe these two games with each other and then ask yourself, why is one game a joy to watch and the other harder to watch? Well, Arne, PSG outplayed us in the first game. We were lucky to win 1-0. And PSG outplayed us for large parts of the second game. So I don't think it was massively a joy to watch. Yes, PSG came to play and they came to have a go. And I think, yes, that helps. But PSG were the superior team. And since that PSG game, Arne, we've actually been shit. Yes, yes, Liverpool won the league that season, but for the rest of the season, post PSG, we were shit. The football, the football we played wasn't good enough. We lost games we shouldn't have lost. We drew games we shouldn't have drawn. Post that PSG game, I think the stats are ridiculous. The amount of games that have been lost. So to keep going on about that PSG game and his obsession with PSG is ridiculous. And I think he talks a lot of crap, if I'm being honest with you. You know when I say, when people always tell me we need an extra pass, but the first goal scored against Fulham was only one pass. These players do know that if we need one pass, or we can use one pass to score a goal, then we try to. Well, I would disagree with that, because that's not what we see as evidence in a lot of the situations, Arna. Because if you go back to the Fulham game, and even to the Leeds game, there's incidences where the midfield get the ball, and if they play one ball over the top or one ball through, they've got a runner who is going through on goal. But instead, they turn, they pass sideways, they pass backwards. I'm sure it was McAllister in the Leeds game. There's an option to put the ball through, I think either to Ekitike or Gakpo. And instead of doing it, he stops, he turns, he passes sideways. Now, that's not a natural player reaction. That's a coached reaction. And again, that's something that Arne Slot is doing to these players. So I think he is disingenuous by saying what he's saying here. The second goal we scored, it was 17 passes. We needed before we could bring a cross in. And sometimes that means if you win the ball back low on the pitch, then the other team goes in the low block. It's harder to get through. I'm sick of hearing low block, low block, low block. Arne, shut up. Or get it through with one pass, which we did in the first goal because we won the ball back high up the pitch. Yes, and that's the key, Arne. Win the ball back up, high press. But not just high press, Arne. Use the ball with some speed. Pass the ball quickly up the pitch. Create overloads. Create chances. Something we're not doing on a regular basis. So, for me, he does talk an awful lot of crap in these press conferences and a lot of inconsistency in what he's actually saying. You know, there's an awful lot of inconsistency in what Arne says in these pressers. There really is. You know, I mean, I think some of it obviously is the fact that he can't say what he actually wants to say because, you know, there's only so much you can come out with. There's only so much you can say without, you know, throwing your players under the bus, without causing issues in the dressing room. And I think there are issues in the dressing room, don't get me wrong already. But, you know, by that same token, I think Slot does need to stop with his double speak and perhaps give a little bit less away in presses. I don't know. But to me, you know, saying that, you know, the players know that and that we don't always overpass, I think is rubbish. You watch the vast majority of games in this 9-game unbeaten run, and even previous to that, and there is way too much overplaying, way too much overpassing by it. And I think, you know, I was listening to Redmen TV the other day, and I've got to say, one of the people on there, one of the only people on there I really, really respect with their opinions is Chloe, because she's match going. She says it as it is. She speaks like a real fan. And she said, that, you know, that most of the fat people around her and her herself during these games are like, when can we go home? This is boring. This is so dull. This is excruciating. And it's right. It is dull. It's the dullest football I've ever seen. It really is. Really is. Guys, we've got some update on the poll. 86% say yes, he should go if Liverpool lose to Arsenal. 14% say no. If you're voting no, let me know why Slot shouldn't be sacked if we lose to Arsenal on Thursday night. Why should Slot remain in post? As I've said earlier, you know, answering Sam's question, I don't think he'll be here next season. I really don't think that Arne will be here next season. I think we will have a new manager. I don't know who it will be. Like I said, it's not my job to find out who it will be. It really isn't. You know, that's for someone else. Guys, up to 97 subs now. We need just 3 more to hit the magic marker of the 100, guys. So please, obviously sub to the video. Arne also spoke in his presser as well about the. He was asked, can this still be a special season for Liverpool? Look, I think the vast majority of us can say the title's gone. The title is gone. You know, the title is gone. We're 14 points behind Arsenal. Realistically, you know, they're not going to lose 5 games between now and the end of the season. And I don't think we're going to stay unbeaten for the rest of the season. So, realistically, the title for Liverpool is gone this season. So, you know, realistically, Liverpool need to look at the Champions League. They need to look at the FA Cup as bin potentials. And I want to talk about those in a moment. But this is what he said. He said, yes, of course, I think this club has shown on many times that when the club didn't have the greatest form in the league, they were able to win another trophy. And other clubs have shown this recently as well. It's always possible. because we have a very good and talented group, we've shown this. Look, I've got to say, yeah, I agree with that. We have got some very talented players. You know, if we can keep them fit, if we can keep them firing, yes, we have got a very talented group of players. Wirtz, Ekitike, McAllister, Sobbo, Grav, you know, Frimpong, Bradley, Kirkes. There's quality in this side. Of course there is. Don't get me wrong on that. You know, there is absolute quality in this team. But, and yeah, look, we have in the past shown, you know, Istanbul, for example, that when we haven't had the best of times in the league, we've gone on to win trophies. And we've shown this season. And look, I agree with him in this one. Inter Milan away was a good performance. Real Madrid at home was probably the best performance of the season. Atletico Madrid at home was good for a bit, bad for a bit, and then good for a bit again. So, you know, Aston Villa as well, who've maybe won 18 of their last 20 games, only lost 2, one against us and one against Arsenal. Yeah, look, it was a good performance against Villa, don't get me wrong. We've beaten Arsenal at home. Yes, I think Liverpool were very good in that game, and I think that game on any other day ends as a draw, apart from Sobbo's wonder goal. So look, yeah, Arna's right there, and I agree with Arna on that one. Maybe there was one exception, but that was also because there was a goal disallowed from us just before half time that shouldn't have been disallowed. That was City away. Wholeheartedly disagree on that one. Even if that goal goes in, I still don't think Liverpool go on to win that game. Man City were lucky not to be 2-3-1 up by that point anyway, or 4-1 up by that point anyway. Manchester City were by far the better team that day, and even if that goal goes in, I don't think it changes the outcome. And Arna can argue all he wants that if Van Dijk scores, Liverpool go on to win. Don't think it happens. But in all the other games, we've been competitive with everyone, but we haven't had consistency against the clubs where we usually win. That led to the fact we're now 14 points behind Arsenal. Another challenge for us, with of course players being out, but still enough very good players and available to go to Arsenal and make it a proper fight. Now, look, yes, we have got a number of players missing. You know, Alexander Isak is missing, obviously with injury. It looks like Hugo Ekitike will be missing, which I think is a massive loss for the club. I think, you know, Ekitike being out. I think he will be out. I think he will be missing. It is huge. Is huge. You know, no proper fit striker against Arsenal is a worry. I think Cody will have to play through the middle as he did against Fulham. So, you know, that's huge. But, you know, that's down to Arna. Arna wanted a small squad. He's got a small squad now. Yeah, and some of those players he doesn't trust. I mean, Chiesa, Rio and Gamoa, Trainioni, players he doesn't trust, players he won't play. So part of that's on you, Arna. You know, if you won't play these players that you've got, then that's your fault, isn't it? It's not Richard Hughes' fault. It's not Michael Edwards' fault. It's not the fans' fault. It's your fault because you have this vendetta against Chiesa, against Gamoa, against Trainioni for whatever reason. You know, use these players for goodness sake, and I don't get why you won't. Now, realistically, if Ekitike is not fit, and I don't think he is going to be, I think Liverpool will line up something like this. I was going to quickly type into the live chat how I think he will line up against Arsenal. I think it will be something like this. Alisson, Bradley. I think I missed a player there. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think it'll be something like that, possibly. Maybe Wirtz in for Maka, I don't know. But Bradley, right back, Konate, Virgil and Kirkes, back four. I think he'll go with Grav, Jones and Maka in midfield. Sobbo on the right. Could be Sobbo on the left. Gakpo through the middle. And Frimpong on the right, something along those lines. Or it could even be that he goes with a lineup like this one, without Ekitike, he's got a number of decisions to make. But I think the back four will be the back four in terms of Kirkes. I think will play as much as I would actually probably play Robbo in this game. I would play Robbo because I think that Robbo would bring leadership and experience to this game. It could even be that he goes with something like this, where Wirtz is on the left, Gakpo through the middle, Frimpong on the right. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting lineup card when it drops pre-game, whenever it drops. So look, I think it could be something along those lines. Where am I up to on this one? Sorry. Look, I think, in terms of this game, with Ekitike out, it's going to be an exceptional challenge for us. A big, big challenge. And I think the problem Slot's done is he's made a kind of rod for his own back. Chiesa could play right side. Rio and Gamoa could come in and play. Rio and Gamoa, for me, yes, he's 17 years old, and realistically, you could ask the question, would you throw him in against Arsenal? Well, if he's in this first team squad, I don't care that he's 17. If you're good enough, you're old enough. And Rio, when he came on against Leeds the other night, created more in the 14 minutes he was on, and looked more lively in that 14 minutes than the whole rest of the Liverpool team had done for all the time they'd been on the pitch. So for me, this inability to bring on, the game against Fulham, again, no Rio and Gamoa to come on again. Why? After he's given probably one of his better performances this season. What has he got against Rio and Gamoa? I don't get it. I don't get this ridiculousness of why he won't play him. Arsenal, like I said, they're a good side. They've got a strong squad. Whoever Arsenal picks. Let's see if I quickly find this. That's Maradonia's crap. Here we go. Look, I think that was the team Arsenal used against Villa, and I think it would be something close to that against us. I think it'd be something close to that team when we play them on. Sorry, just quickly replying to someone. Yeah, so I think it'll be something close to that. Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, for him, Capi. That's a really strong back four. Midfield: Odegaard, Zubimendi, and Marino, again, a strong midfield that we'll have to try and combat and overcome. Front three: Saka, Gyökeres, and Trossard. I think Gyökeres is pretty average, to be honest with you, but that will be the team. Yes, he did rotate that team for the game against Bournemouth, but they're a strong lineup. They are a very, very strong. Very, very strong lineup. So I do think that this will be very tough. And look, you look at those 11 players that we've got, and realistically, they should be able to go toe to toe with Arsenal. If you look at that second team, for example, that I named there in the live chat: Alisson, Bradley, Konate, Virgil, Kerkez, Grav, Sobbo, Jones, Frimpong, Gakpo, Viet. That squad, that team is more than talented enough to go head to head with Arsenal. The worry has got to be, what impact have you got off the bench? Because Chiesa obviously isn't trusted for whatever reason. Rio and Gamoa again. You probably see garbage time minutes at very most from him. You're going to have a lot of young lads on the bench. Neoni's going to be on the bench. I suppose Maka will be on the bench, and he would probably be the obvious one to come on. Obviously, we've got no Endo at the moment; he's injured. There is a real lack of options. Joe Gomez as well, obviously, is another option, but that's a defensive change. So, look, for me, we've got a starting 11 capable of competing with Arsenal, but a squad that perhaps over 90 minutes perhaps can't live with them, because you look at their bench. By contrast, and it's a hell of a lot stronger. Olivia says Slot's hatred of Chiesa is ridiculous. I've got to say, Olivia, I don't understand his dislike of Federico Chiesa. I don't get what Federico Chiesa has done wrong. Yes, I'm not saying that Chiesa is the best player in world football, but at least when he comes on, he fights, he battles, he gives everything. Gives everything for the time that he's on. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. The bench, you look at Arsenal's bench in that Villa game. Ben White is a former England international. Gabriel Jesus is a good player. Norgard is a good player. Madueke, good player. Miles Lewis-Skelly, good player. Eberake Eze probably walks into any other team in the Premier League. Martinelli, good player. Havertz, again, their strength in depth is ridiculous. Their strength in depth is absolutely ludicrous. If you contrast that with the Liverpool team, that's the bench that we had against Fulham on Sunday. Liverpool's bench on Sunday was Gomez, Chiesa, Frimpong, Mamalashvili, Robertson, Woodman, Neoni, Ramsey, and Gamoa. It doesn't. It's not even a consistent. It's not even, is it? It really isn't. So, yeah, they have got a greater strength in depth than us, and I think we can debate all you want. The situation there, is that down to Richard Hughes? Is that down to Arne Slot only wanting a small squad? Is that down just purely to fitness issues? What's that down to? So look, realistically, it's night and day, isn't it? It is absolutely night and day in comparison in terms of squad depth and squad strength. But look, I've got to say, I've had this weird feeling all week. Since Sunday, I've had a weird feeling. That the game will be defensive. I think it will be. I think Liverpool will go and set up to be defensive. I think they may go and set up the similar way they did against Man City last season. Be defensive, frustrate Arsenal, sit back against them, block against them, mid-block, low block against Arsenal, create as many difficult moments for Arsenal as possible. And I think Liverpool win it 1-0. I think Liverpool win it 1-0 with a set-piece goal. There's something in me, and look, I know that's so unlikely that you get this frustration. But 90 minutes of boring, frustrating football with a 1-0 at some point, I just can see it happening. I can just see it happening. Khalid, so I mispronounced your name. Welcome. Says Slot is looking for sympathy playing Ekitike for 90 minutes against Wolves, Leeds. Barely trusted Chiesa. Now we're fucked. Look, I agree. I think he should have brought Chiesa on to replace Ekitike at some point. Rested Ekitike. Again, I think Ekitike is a player that has shown he does struggle to play 90 minutes. He gets to the 60, 70 minute mark and then starts to cramp up. Slot's pushed him through that in those games, and it's obviously created some sort of muscle damage or some sort of injury. And this is what we're seeing now, Khalid, is from overload on these players. We're seeing injuries because they're being overloaded. We can go back to last season. If you kind of look at when the situation where we were going on all four fronts still, Champions League, still very much in that, the League Cup final, the FA Cup against Plymouth. When it all fell apart was the point where we got to the point where these players were getting overloaded again and they looked knackered. I mean, you look at sort of February, March last year, Gravenberch looked knackered. He looked knackered. And I think the small squad thing is hurting Liverpool. Now, like I said, we can debate, is that Richard Hughes' fault or is that Arne Slot's fault? Part of me says it's Slot's fault because he's the one that said he wanted a smaller squad. The other part of me says, well, it's Richard Hughes' fault for not insisting on buying players because Richard Hughes is the sporting director. So I think there's a kind of equal blame to put on that one. But the small squad situation is not helping this club in the slightest. And as I've just shown you, you look at the difference in squad strengths between Arsenal and Liverpool, and it is night and day, absolutely night and day. Really is night and day. I mean, if you look at even Manchester City's squad, and Manchester City, obviously, they're going to sign Semenyo. They could sign Mark Gahey. You look at their squad, and you look at the strength they've got. I mean, their team against Chelsea was where's their team? Here we go. Their team against Chelsea was Donnarumma in goal, Nunez, Diaz, and Guardiola, who went off injured. Obviously, Nico O'Reilly, Silva, Rodri, Reinders, Cherki, Foden, and Haaland. You look at their bench: Ake, Doku, quality; Kusanov, quality; Trafford, quality. Rico Lewis is a good player as well. There's still more quality. Yes, there were some young guys like Mukasa, Muffini, and Heskey on the bench, but they still had more options to come off that bench than we did. So look, there is a lot more strength in depth within that squad, certainly than there is in ours. Khaled says, we praised his load management of players and now he doesn't care because of the pressure. True. I think you're right in that one. I don't think his load management was great last season, Khaled, if I'm being honest with you. Because like I said to you, February, March last year, we looked knackered. And that was part of the fall-off, I think. And that was the fall-off towards the end of the season as well because the players had been overplayed to some degree. But look, the game is going to be huge. It's a huge game. Don't get me wrong. No matter what, whenever Arsenal and Liverpool meet, it is a huge game. It is massive. And our record down in London ain't great. I think we've only won two of our last 7 games in London, which is not brilliant. But my big concern at this moment in time, and like I said, I get that sacking a manager is a big thing, and I get that sacking a manager is a worry because you always worry what's going to come next, and you don't want to turn into Manchester United. But the big debate for me on Arne Slot is, we are not playing to the potential or to the level of what we've got. I read a quote, I can't remember who this was by, but someone said we are the best worst coach team in Europe. We're the best worst coach team in Europe. What do we mean by that? Well, we have some of the best players in Europe, but we are appallingly badly coached. We are appallingly badly coached. Khalid says, Slaughter said before he has a centre-back depth with Grav and Endo who can play in that positions. Now it's changed. Yeah, I don't think there is centre-back depth there though, Khalid. I mean, Grav, you take him out of midfield, it weakens the midfield. Who do you play in that six? I'm not saying that Grav's the perfect six, because I still think we need to sign a six. But who do you play in that six role if you drop Grav into the back four? And Endo, to me, is... I know he's played a lot of games at centre-back for his country, and in Japan, in the J-League. But playing in the J-League at centre-back is very different to playing in the Premier League at centre-back or the Champions League at centre-back. I don't think there is strength in depth. Or Robbo even coming in there. They're short-term fixes. Would you realistically be happy, let's say tomorrow, if Konate got injured or Virgil got injured, heaven forbid, and then we have to go the rest of the season with Grav or Endo at centre-back or Robbo at centre-back? You know, because yes, we've got Joe Gomez, but we all know that Joe Gomez can't play 3 games a week. So, you know, we're going to have to pull them in. Would you be super confident that that would work? No, I wouldn't be. I certainly wouldn't be. And look, I do think we need to sign a centre-back in January. I think it's a must. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. Probably not. But look, that's where we're up to. And I do think this game is going to be a critical game. I think if we lose this game and we lose this game badly, I think the pressure will ratchet up even more on this manager. Even if you are slot in, I think it will ratchet up even more. Guys, we've hit 98 subs. We need 2 more for 100. Please obviously hit that sub, ring that notification bell, and keep checking out the content. Right, guys, look, that is it for this afternoon, this morning. Obviously, thank you for watching the Liverpool FC Journal. Please keep your eye out for further lives. We'll be back in the morning with some more videos. I think we're going to put a live on in the morning as well. My big criticism of Slot is not giving Calvin Ramsey, Neoni and Rio more minutes. I agree, Khalid. I don't think he uses his squad fully enough. You can have a small squad, but use the players you've got. Calvin Ramsey against Crystal Palace looked good. Trey Neoni was a player who Richard Hughes talked about as having a big future this season because of how he played in pre-season. And Rio as well. I get they're young. I get they're 17, 18 years old. But you look at other clubs bringing in these younger players. Guardiola's used Nico O'Reilly, Rico Lewis, Phil Foden, all when they were teenagers. Lamine Yamal at Barcelona. I'm not saying for a minute that Rio is Lamine Yamal. He's not. But look at it this way. Other clubs do it. Why aren't we? That's a big question. Anyway, thank you for watching Liverpool FC Journal, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content. If you have, please obviously like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, as always, on this channel. We're going to keep growing, keep going. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon.